Hi guys, I'm Y, and today we're going to be going over my top 10 queer horror films. So, as we know, I'm part of the LGBTQIA community, and if you didn't know that, welcome. The queer community has always had its hand in horror, even if you didn't know it. Our stories have been told through monsters and beings hiding in the shadows, much like we used to. And the campy tropes that have embedded themselves in queer humor. That's the reason why the queer community tends to be drawn to the genre. If you guys are interested more on that aspect of this video, I'm unfortunately not going to be talking about it much. I can make a video on it in the future, but if you want to read something about it, an article by Maya Lotus down in the description below. She does a great job on breaking this down. So we have 10 queer horror films that we're going to be going through today. They start out more upfront and direct, and then they start going into either queer icon status or queer baiting. The first one here is actually one of my favorite horror movies of recent years. It is Midnight Kiss 2018, directed by Carter Smith, also the director of The Ruins 2008, and produced by Blumhouse for Hulu. Midnight Kiss follows a group of longtime gay best friends and their straight female bestie as they head to a beautiful desert home to celebrate New Year's Eve. One of their annual traditions is to play a game called Midnight Kiss, a sexy but ultimately dangerous challenge to find that special someone to help you ring in the new year. As friendships have grown strained with secrets, jealousy, and resentment, the group faces another challenge when a sadistic killer wants in on the game. Relationships are put to the test, and truths are revealed as the night turns into a fight for survival. So this movie is very upfront with the queer elements, and it's a bunch of gay best friends, and they're partying in Palm Springs on New Year's Eve, which I wouldn't think would be a very gay holiday, but if you think about it, just like the drama, the elegance, everyone's wearing something sparkly, champagne, very gay. And the killer in this is wearing like a leather kink mask, which is a very specific choice. And there's some creative kills in this, which are really fun. It seems very genuine. I don't know if anyone would agree with me, that the cast feels very real. Not necessarily well-rounded, but like I know that these people exist and that they have lives. So it makes you care about them a little bit more. Granted, you're not going to like all of them, but I care about them. Want to watch Midnight Kiss? It is streaming on Hulu. It is part of Blumhouse's Into the Dark television series where they produce a horror movie for every holiday for Hulu. My throat is already getting a little dry. I filmed another video right before this for my main channel. Link in bio. Number 2 on this list is a new trilogy, but it's really entertaining. It is the Fear Street Trilogy by R.L. Stine on Netflix. Directed by Leah Janik and produced by Netflix. A circle of teenage friends accidentally encounter the ancient evil responsible for a series of brutal murders that have plagued their town for over 300 years. Welcome to Shadyside. Sorry if you hear that noise in the background, that is my refrigerator that just decided to start making noises. So this movie, again, is very upfront with the queer elements. It is about a same-sex ex-couple, and it goes through the history of this town. Granted, the queer elements aren't right up front in your face, which I kind of like, that it's not like a campy trope, that it is just part of who the characters are. So it's nice to see some natural representation. Granted, this movie isn't super realistic, as there are serial killers and there's a supernatural element to it. If you haven't seen this series yet, I highly recommend watching it. Each movie is about an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and a half, and they flow together, so you need to watch them in order. I think, though, part 2, which doesn't have much queer elements to it, is my favorite in the series, just because it reminds me of Camp Crystal Lake. And if you guys want to watch the Fear Street Trilogy, it is streaming on Netflix. Number 3 is Spiral 2019, not the Saw movie. This is a Shudder original. Directed by Curtis David Harder, a same-sex couple moves to a small town to enjoy better quality of life and raise their daughter with strong social values. But when neighbors throw a very strange party, nothing is as it seems in their picturesque neighborhood. So this movie is kind of terrifying just because, you know, being the only queer people in a not queer community can be a frightening thing depending on where you are. And there's a lot of elements in this movie. It's like I want to say slasher meets supernatural thriller meets psychological drama. Like it's a lot of things, but it's really, really good. The ending, like the end scene, really makes you see the entire movie differently. So it changed the experience of the movie for a really good way. And it just added to the point of the story. So, like I said, if you want to see Spiral, it is streaming on Shudder. I believe this movie is a Finnish film, so it's not in English, which normally I can't watch because my attention span. But it's a really good psychological thriller. Directed by Erlingur Thordarson. Months after they broke up, Gunnar receives a strange phone call from his ex-boyfriend, Anir. He sounds distraught, like he's about to do something terrible to himself. Gunnar drives up to the secluded cabin where Anar is holed up and soon discovers that there is more going on than he imagined. As the two men come to terms with their broken relationship, some other person seems to be lurking outside the cabin, wanting to get in. So this is, again, much stronger with the queer elements, and it's interesting to see that it's about a broken relationship and kind of like the healing process that they're going through. It is a horror movie, but there's a certain like drama aspect to it and a sort of story that doesn't get told a lot in mainstream media. If you want to watch Rift, it is streaming on Tubi, Roku, and Vudu. Number 5 on this list does contain a queer scene, but is mostly on this list because of queer icon status, and that is Jennifer's Body. Directed by Karen Kusama, a newly possessed high school cheerleader turns into a succubus who specializes in killing her male classmates. Can her best friend put an end to the horror? I love this movie. There is a queer scene. If you haven't seen Jennifer's Body, I'm not going to spoil it for you. But, you know, this movie came out 14 years ago or 13 years ago, and it still holds up to this day. Also, can we bring back, like, emo tropes, like emo characters and movies? Because I don't think I'm supposed to find him attractive, but I do. If you want to watch Jennifer's Body, unfortunately, it is not streaming anywhere at the moment that I'm filming, but it is available for purchase or rent. Number 6, Seed of Chucky, 2004. Directed by Don Mancini. Gentle Glenn is a ventriloquist dummy, the genderqueer offspring of evil doll Chucky and his doll bride, both of whom are now deceased. When the orphaned Glenn hears that a film is being made about their parents, they go to Hollywood and resurrect them in an attempt to get to know them better. Glenn is horrified when Chucky and his lover embark on a new killing spree, and Chucky is equally horrified that his child has no taste for evil. So this movie did have some queer elements. It is not explicitly stated in the film that Glenn/Glenda is a genderqueer person, doll, ventriloquist dummy. But in the new TV series by Don Mancini, Chucky, Chucky does state that he has a genderqueer child, and supports him because he's not a monster. So that's why this is on this list, because of that recent clarification. It's a really fun watch, and you know who doesn't love Chucky? Queer ally. And Tiffany, Jennifer Tilly, queer icon, queer status. I love her. If you want to watch The Seed of Chucky, it is available for purchase or renting. So now the list really goes to more vague queer elements. I'll explain as we go on. Number 7 is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, directed by Jack Solder. A new family moves into the house on Elm Street, and before long, the kids are again having nightmares about a deceased child murderer, Freddy Krueger. This time, Freddy attempts to possess the teenage boy to cause havoc in the real world. It can only be overcome if the boy's sweetheart can master her fear. If you don't see the queer element in this film directly, there is a documentary with the lead star of this film called Scream Queen. It is available on Shudder. But the relationship between the main guy and his bully / friend is very queer. There's a lot of writhing around and screaming. And also the fact that the boy is cast as our final girl is implied like a queer element to the film. And, you know, the roles are reversed. His girlfriend has to save him. And Freddy is still very sexual with the man. And he's literally like trying to get inside of him. It is, I believe this was rated a few years ago as the gayest horror film of all time. If you want to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, it is available on Tubi. Number 8, The Covenant, 2006. Directed by Rennie Harlin, in the 17th century, 5 families with supernatural powers make a pact of silence. Eventually, one power-hungry family is banished. The descendants of those 4 remaining families are heirs to tremendous power. Known as the Son of Ipswich, the boys attend elite Spencer Academy. When a student there is found dead after a party, unraveling secrets threaten to shatter the pact that has protected the boys' families for centuries. So, there's a very queer dynamic between, almost like an obsession between 2 of the male characters. Also, they're like shirtless a lot, and there's like a whole scene in the shower. None of the characters are explicitly gay or gay in general, but there's a lot of like queer baiting and like their mannerisms, the way they talk to each other, the body language. Also, all of them look like they stepped right out of CW. If you want to watch The Covenant, it is available to stream on Tubi. Number 9 is one of my favorites on this list, The Lost Boys. Directed by Joel Schumacher. Teenage brothers Michael and Sam move with their mother to a small town in Northern California. While the younger Sam meets a pair of kindred spirits and geeky comic book nerds, Edward and Alan, the angst-ridden Michael soon falls for Star, who turns out to be in thrall to David, leader of a local gang of vampires. Sam and his new friend must save Michael and Star from the undead. Again, there's nothing explicitly queer about this movie, other than the dynamics between some of the characters, the dynamic between the male characters, and just like the thirst traps of Michael in this movie. He's hot. Honestly, Star, his love interest, really doesn't play that big of a role in this film other than as a plot device to get Michael to the vampires. In my opinion, most of the relationship is between most of the character development and storyline is between Michael and David, the leader of the vampires. I told you, we're getting abstract the further we get down on this list, okay? If you want to watch The Lost Boys, it is streaming on Netflix. Number 10, The Babadook, 2014. Directed by Jennifer Kent, a single mother plagued by the violent death of her husband battles with her son's fear of a monster lurking in the house, but soon discovers a sinister presence all around her. I feel like I have to explain this one a little bit more. So I was having trouble coming up with a 10th queer horror film that I've actually watched already. And then I remembered a few years ago this tweet. Yes. Which led to Twitter claiming the Babadook as a queer icon and to lovely images such as these. In no way are there any queer elements in the Babadook. But Pennywise and the Babadook are in a ship. They're dating. They're a queer couple, and you can't tell the gay community otherwise. Anyway, that's my top 10 queer horror films.